thank you so much, Charles Band, director, producer, writer Charles Band, for coming on Radio of Horror to talk a little bit about your amazing career and what you got coming up. What are you working on these days, Charles?
It's like, what are we not working on? Everything. We've been shooting. The ambitious program this year is a movie every month. So that's, it sounds crazy. You think, okay, we can pull it off. And we are. We've now 4 months in. We're 4 features shot, 2 released, and we're about to start shooting our 5th show in 2 weeks in Cleveland, Ohio. So, it's a mixed bag. Some of them are essentially sequels, or they tie into franchises of the past. And there's a few new ones, like we just barely finished and released Ted Nicolau's show called Don't Let Her In, kind of a spooky Rosemary's Baby type program that we shot barely 5 weeks ago here in Los Angeles. And then we're doing a demonic toys spinoff called Baby Oopsie. That's the one we shoot in a few weeks. First show up this year was The Resonator, which was an H.P. Lovecraft sort of, I'm not sure what to call it, sort of a Lovecraft homage. And I was very happy with the way that works, since we've been doing that since the 80s between Reanimator and From Beyond and so forth and so on. So we're in high production, and also this is all about our streaming sites. So the world's different than what it was back when I started making movies. Now we're streaming. Luckily, we're able to stream into people's homes.
Yeah, it's you knew streaming coming was going to change a lot of things, and then you had no idea like how much everything was going to change last year. It's like something out of a movie.
It is. You couldn't have predicted it. And I was early on. Moments practically after Netflix kind of shifted into the streaming mode. We not that long ago we were all getting discs at home, rental discs from Netflix. I really felt that was going to be a great way to connect, and I started way back then, full moon streaming, and I went to conventions. It was like getting people to sign up literally one at a time, and but we had 1,000, 1,500 subscribers after a year of a lot of hard work, and it didn't make any financial sense, but at least we had people that were tuning in, because by then the video stores were almost gone. And then luckily, a fan who also happened to work for Netflix got in touch with me and said, hey, we're starting this add-on subscription model where people who are on Prime can, if they want, subscribe to other bizarro sites, streaming sites, and we'd like to invite you to be one of them. And it was like, sure, that sounds good. And that of course opened up what we're doing to a much bigger audience. So we're now just for years now in the process of reconnecting mainly with people who discover these movies and watch them growing up at their local video store.
That is exactly how I discovered who you were. I might have been in my late adolescent or early teens. I'm not 100% positive, but I definitely think it was like, the amazing way, and they don't do this anymore, even with Disney, with all their freaking money, they don't make beautiful artistic covers anymore, like Dr. Mordred or Trancers or Subspecies or something. And it was those films that grabbed onto me. I was just like, what is this? Before I knew anything about filmmaking or even knew who you were.
Right.
Right.
Well, yeah, the taste of the audience and what a poster needed to be and accomplish is also sort of changed over the years. So back in the old days of being the B side of a double bill, and having my movies in the mid to late 70s released, in drive-ins, basically theatrically, it was all about that big 30 by 40 lurid poster. People would go, oh my God, look at that monster. And what is that monster, I think, doing to that hot chick? And next thing you know, they buy a ticket. Poster was pretty much the window. And then that shrunk down to the cover of a VHS and morphed a bit into a cover of a DVD. But as that happened, generally speaking, the taste changed to where the illustration was less effective. People wanted more photorealistic covers. I've pretty much stuck mainly to the illustration, even though it's a little different today, because I just think it's really cool. It's a little retro sometimes, but all those early covers for the full moon films in the 90s, they were all done by just a couple of wonderful painters. So yeah, it's interesting how the window changes. Today, it's always been about the title too. Back in the day, it was the title and the poster, or the title and the cover art. Now it's just more the title, because you're streaming, looking through movies, you're looking at a list of films, and you want a title that sort of grabs you and doesn't feel like a B movie. And then if you're interested, you can click on it, and then you can see an image. And if that all makes sense, then you can go, download a movie. So it still hasn't changed. It's just the medium, of course, has changed.
Um, do you? I mean, this is maybe a hard question sometimes, but is there like one? Is there one category of film that you like the most? Is it fantasy, sci-fi, horror, action? Because you've gone into all the genres. I mean, I don't think
Right.
there's anything you haven't touched, and everything has sprinkles of comedy sometimes, and
Yeah,
drama,
well,
romance.
I like that, and I like a sprinkling of some sexiness too, because that's sort of what if you remember way back when, as a young kid, when you watched the movie and the horror and the monster and the girl's being chased, and oh my God, for a minute you see her boobs flying, and all of this seems silly to talk about as a more or less mature adult, but you got to remember what drew people into these films. I mean, the vampire movie always had, or more than just vampire. Most of these movies had some, girl in distress or in jeopardy. I mean, it hasn't changed that much. So all that works. The humor works, especially. But to me, it's more about, to answer your question, it's not so much one of the subgenres. It's just, please give me a movie that's really clever and well made that surprises me. The big formula, most of the big tentpole movies with all the hundreds of millions they spend are usually just so, not interesting to me. And the effects are amazing, but who needs 2 hours of, people pounding you on the head with special effects? You miss the character-driven shows. So to me, it's, a great horror movie, a great sci-fi, a fantasy, any movie that just is different, where I'm just not, kind of going, okay, now I know what they're doing. And that's not easy. That's the art of making a good movie. Those are few and far between.
One thing I was so excited about was last year, and we had on Emily Sweet on from Castle Freak to talk about the remake of Castle Freak that you did.
Right, right. Yeah, no, I was not involved at all. It's one of those rare moments where people I
Oh,
know, but outside producers come and say, hey, we'd like to do a reboot. We'll give you some money. I'm not a big believer in remaking movies that are pretty damn good to begin with. But I mean, I know it's a business decision. There's a formula. So yeah, I licensed the rights for those people to make a remake, a reboot of Castle Freak. And that's great. Just like I did the same a few years ago with Puppet Master, and they made the same group made a show called The Littlest Reich, and that was a Puppet Master reboot. But both of those we were not involved in.
When there's like an executive producer on your title for anything, like let's say on IMDb, can you explain to the audience like what executive producer means versus producer?
Well, executive producer, I mean, for me, it's a little different because it's my company. I've made 8 gazillion movies, but generally speaking, an executive producer puts the pieces together, usually finds the financing, depending on how it shapes up, is involved with hiring the director, making some creative decisions. Again, we're making all these movies in-house, so it's not like we're out there looking for money or doing a lot of what a more traditional executive producer would do. But in my case, if I'm producing a show, I'm like hands-on from start to finish. Even when I'm executive producing, I mean, I'm very involved. I mean, the ideas are all generally mine, the titles, it all starts with a piece of art. I back into these movies. I don't, with few exceptions, make a movie then wonder what I'm going to call it or how I'm going to sell it. If I'm not excited about, what the movie, how to sell the movie, what the movie's called, and what the premise is, then I'm really not going to make the show. So I'm always involved in that part, and even as executive producer, I'm involved with all sorts of steps along the way. But if I'm producing, I'm physically on set every day. I'm there, start to finish, and so and these are not hard rules. You'll find executive producers on other shows that virtually do nothing more than maybe make the deal, and then they watch the movie 6 months later. So it's different on every movie.
You're returning to, I don't know if this is possibly your most famous, but it's definitely the most one of the well-known. Subspecies 5 is coming out, and
Right.
you definitely, as you put it, not a fan of remakes. You seem to continue films because I mean, the Trancers has had like multiple
Right.
sequels, which is really
Right.
nice. And hey, I love numbering in film. I've gotten sick and tired of being like, oh, by the third film, it's now whatever they're calling the subtitle of part 4, but there's no number 4 in the title.
Right.
Why is that? Why are they doing that?
I don't know. I'm such a collector and number freak that a lot of people are just now discovering this because we don't promote it very well. I have numbered my movies from the first movie I made in 1976. So in recent years, if you wait till the end of the movie, you'll see some character that's usually, you know, inspired from the movie come and do like a rubber stamp. It'll say Full Moon number 327. And, so my movies are numbered. I mean, I made my first movie in 76, and the one we just released is number 345. Bizarre, but true. So yeah, I number everything, and certainly when you make a series, and none of these were planned really. It's not we decided, oh, we're going to make 11 Puppet Master films. If anything that worked well enough and the fans liked, we would, then make another one and make another one. These aren't remakes at all. These are the continuation, sometimes well done, sometimes not so well done, of a series, of a franchise. So yeah, in the case of Puppet Master, we've made 12 of them, and in the case of Subspecies, yes, we were going to shoot Subspecies 5 last year. It was all set for Croatia, Ted Nicolau directing, Anders Hove, we were all set, and of course COVID messed that up. So we're hoping later this year, when we can travel to Europe again, we'll be able to shoot Subspecies 5. That's like a hot potato. As soon as we can get to Europe, we're going to make it.
That's fantastic. Not done a lot of research on this one little question, but I've heard you own multiple castles, you own land in Romania. This is where you shoot a lot.
Well, you got to put the past tense on all that. This business, luckily I've survived 40 odd years, so I've had great ups and horrible downs. So in recent years, when things got really bad for independents, most of them are gone. Most of the people who I worked with back in the 80s and 90s are no longer in this business. But we were able to hold on. But when the death of video rental happened and Blockbuster and Hollywood Video closed, it really killed the business for a lot of people. That's how a lot of movies got made since the early 80s. So yeah, during the heyday for many years, I did own a castle in Italy. That had to be sold some years ago, but during those many years, it was an amazing place. We made movies there like Meridian, which I directed, Pit and the Pendulum, which Stuart Gordon directed, Castle Freak, we just talked about Castle Freak, also Stuart Gordon, and several other movies were made there over the years. And I owned a studio outside of Rome, Italy, back in the 80s, and we called it Empire Studios. It was the original name. The original studio was built in the 60s by Dino De Laurentiis, and it was huge movies were made there, Barbarella, The Bible, and I managed to buy it in the 80s, and we made, I don't know, about 40 movies there from probably 85 to 89, including movies like Troll and Dolls and From Beyond and Crawl Space and Arena. So yeah, a lot of the Empire movies were made at that studio in Rome. So yeah, and then I also built a studio in Romania, which I also eventually sold. And yeah, I do have, so no more castle, no more studios, but we've kind of re-emerging from all of this because of the streaming side. That's where there's a lot of options today. People have limited amount of dollars. How many streaming sites can they afford to subscribe to?
Right.
I just hope they support the few independents because it's really hard to compete on a small budget without lots of fun financing and hocus pocus, and it's hard to compete with. Forget even compete. It's hard to live in the same space with the Netflixes and the Hulus and Warners and Disney. I mean, they have billions of dollars. I mean, when they make a $200 million movie, it's crazy. I mean, we don't. Our movies are made on like the cappuccino budget of those big films. So at the end of the day, hopefully fans support like fullmoonfeatures.com, our channel, and there's only a few out there because what's going to happen, I hope it doesn't happen, is if these channels go away, then all that will be left are, and nothing wrong with Netflix, they produce a lot of good stuff, nothing wrong with Hulu and Disney, but small independent filmmakers will not get in there. I mean, 1 in 100 will get in, and their little cool project will turn into what they call a low budget $3 to $5 million film, and it won't resemble the original idea. And when you think of all the great movies that we love as genre films made in the 80s and 90s, these were movies that were made only because there was a real vibrant direct-to-video business, whether it was Halloween or the Friday the 13th or I Spit on Your Grave, or I don't know, there's just so many that come to mind. These movies would never have been made if not for the home video business. The major studios back then would never have touched any of those movies. But because there was a business that was a reasonable business, you make a small movie, you release it on video, you get some money back, maybe you make a profit. That's how all these movies that in many cases they're being remade today as big reboots. They were made for those reasons. The finances and this doesn't exist anymore today. You cannot make a small movie of that size and ever hope to recover the money in streaming. It's streaming. They call it digital dimes. It doesn't. There's not an. I mean, yes, we're in the business because luckily I have a library of hundreds of titles, and that kind of carries us along. And we're trying to expand our subscriber base, and we're fighting to keep making cool, independent, cutting-edge, weird-ass movies. But it's a tough business because, again, it's not like the video business where you could spend $200,000, make a cool film, and if you got it into Blockbuster in Hollywood and the fans discovered it, you could actually make a little money. There's no chance of that today. So that's why fans with their limited dollars need to support the few remaining real independent streaming sites like a Full Moon.
Who was it that just announced they're going to build their own streaming service to host their content? Mystery Science Theater 3000 is coming back again, and this time they're like, we're not doing Netflix. We're just going to build our own platform and host it there.
Yeah, well, that's there's a good example. It's funny because Shout Factory is part of the matrix there with that series, and I'm happy that every time they have a new season of Mystery Science Theater, they've come to me and they've taken one of my movies. So in the first one, if you've seen them all, Laser Blast was one of my movies, and that was a lot of fun. And then the second season, they licensed The Daytime Ended, another old stop motion animation, fun kind of silly film. And so yeah, we're in with them on each of these shows. And a new season, which they're still in production on, they licensed Robot Wars, a movie I made back in the early 90s. So we've kind of had one movie out of the 12 or however many are in their season since they started doing Mystery Science Theater.
One of the going back to where you've shot in so many just beautiful locations. Everything was real, right? You never did, or did you ever have to do green screen because everything looks so like you could touch it?
No, I mean, there's always an occasional shot, but no, I've been, this is a long conversation, but the shortest version is I'm so into capturing things in the old days it was on film, now it's a digital deal. I'm not a CGI guy. It just doesn't appeal to me. And yes, with lots of money, I've seen some great work, but when it's organic, when it's either on film, you're shooting it as opposed to sort of creating an illustration. It just looks better. So all the weird movies I've made, all the puppet and doll movies, all of those are live action. They're rod puppetry, they're stop motion animation. And even movies you think, well, Head of the Family, which is a more obscure movie I've made, but a lot of people like it, and it's pretty weird, and it's kind of a dark humor film. It's about a big head, that controls his siblings. And anyway, that is a movie where it'd be so easy to shoot it with CGI because you shoot the big head. So obviously, we didn't hire an actor with a head the size of a beach ball, but you shoot the big head. And then with CGI, you can put in the characters who are normal size talking to the head. We didn't do any of that. We did all forced perspective, which I'm a big fan of. It takes more time. It's not easy, but forced perspective was a trick they used back, at the turn of the century, the beginning of cinema, where for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, it's kind of simple. If you if you want, let's just say a head, in the case of head of the family, if you want the head to appear really big, you have to use a certain lens. You put it closer to camera, and then you put, let's say there's two people looking up at the head, you put them 20 feet away. You got to give them the right eye lines so that it looks like they're looking into the eyes of the big head, but it's all done in one shot. And if you do it well and you light it well, it's miraculous. It's not a trick. It's literally, you think, wow, did they really hire an actor who's got the head the size of a huge head? But so yeah, whether it's background scenery, Romania, Italy, giving that real look and those real locations, I think, make a difference.
We don't have a lot of time left, but I wanted to get to probably my favorite film of yours. It's probably the film that I really started discovering, like, what is Full Moon? Who is this? What other films are in here? And I come to find out it's based on, it's connected in some way to one of my favorite comic book characters, Dr. Mordred.
Right.
Just one of my hands down favorite films that when it finally came out on Blu-ray, I immediately had to have it.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the early Marvel comics. I was lucky enough to hang out with Jack Kirby, the amazing artist, and Stan Lee and I were friends for many years, and sadly they're all gone.
Yeah.
And I mean, Dr. Mordred clearly is an homage to Doctor Strange. So it's sort of Full Moon's, homage is the wrong word. It's sort of our Doctor Strange, made on a obviously a tiny budget, but still clever enough that it had some charm and wit, and starring the wonderful Jeffrey Combs from Reanimator and other films like we made, like From Beyond, and it had some great stop motion animation from David Allen, another wizard who's no longer with us, and somehow I just felt the movie was magical and charming, in its own way. That's what I miss from a lot of these big Hollywood movies, that you don't have the charm, you don't have the characters, you have insane special effects, and after 2 hours you go, oh my God, is this thing over? And then there's yet another ending. You go, oh my God, okay, well, I forgot what this movie's about, but once again we're going to see cities destroyed and oceans crashing and things blowing up, and Mordred, I think, is a good example of a charming film, much like another film I made more or less in that same timeline, which was Trancers, the original Trancers with Tim Thomerson, and it was Helen Hunt's first movie. It's another clever, it's a sci-fi movie, but obviously low budget, but still, I think, kind of fun and clever.
When people talk about when people talk about like the Marvel film, the one with Benedict Cumberbatch, I'm like, have you seen the one with Jeffrey Combs though? It's kind of like Doctor Strange. They're like, wait, Jeffrey Combs? I'm like, and then I have to explain kind of what you've explained as well. And they're like, wow, this was really like Doctor Strange. And I'm like, yeah, I wish it was, but I like it being its own thing. Being its own thing is so much more fun too.
Well, to give you an idea, because I mean, I just know because I know too many people in the business. So if we had well, I'll make it simple. The budget of Dr. Mordred, which was not cheap. I mean, we spent money, but in our little world, it was expensive, but it was, by industry standards, a low budget movie. We could have made 200 Dr. Mordreds for the price of one Doctor Strange with Benedict. 200.
Wow. Is there any film of yours, anything, you produced it, you written it, you directed it, that you wish that you had the abilities today back then to just completely, like not remake it, but like you could have done it better? Is there something that you always wish that you were like, I hate that, I really don't like how that came out?
Not really. I never look back. I am in such forward motion with everything I do. There's looking back and thinking and plucking it apart, and revisionist thinking. I'm not for me. I'm looking at the movies we're in production on and pre-production next year, and I don't have a lot of time. So once in a while there's a reason to look at one of my older films, but it's rare. And I'm even the ones that didn't turn out as well as I would have liked, they're all kind of fun. Again, this is all about our streaming site. Yes, we do release on Blu-ray and DVD, and there's still people who like physical media, but they're a very small percentage. Most people are, I mean, crazy or not, most people are looking at these movies on their phone, which is also a mind-boggling thing, that half of the people are watching these shows on their, on their smartphones. So but that's fine. You know, however they're watching it, I'm happy. Just keep on subscribing to Full Moon Features. And what we do, you know, to make it really attractive for people, you know, we have two promotions that are both kind of amazing when you think of it. One is if you sign up for a year to fullmoonfeatures.com for $59.95, we give you for free a 12 Blu-ray box set of Puppet Master, which is worth 120 bucks.
Wow.
Yeah, and the alternative deal, it's just you just go to subscription and you can see this. The alternative deal is even crazier. If you sign up once again for a year, $59.95, you can get 10 Blu-rays, DVDs or Blu-rays of your choice. So if you choose 10 Blu-rays, that's like 170 bucks, and that's at a good price, $16.95. So you know we're trying to trade physical media. We're trying to bring people into the tent because Full Moon Features is where we're releasing all our new movies, and we're doing a lot of kind of cool, innovative things. So we just hope people come on board and stick around.
Charles, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Like I said, I've been a big fan. I don't even know how far back it goes. But like you said, I discovered you in the rental stores, man. I was such a rental store kid. And, you know, yeah, it's great to be able to pull up my phone and go, hey, look, the Bad Batch, the new Star Wars cartoon's on, you know, available. I can watch it right now at work or something. But right. I miss being able to go home, grab a pizza, and stop in the video store and be like, all right, now I'm going to spend an hour trying to figure out what I want to watch because they're all out of Mission Impossible 12.
Right, right.
What's Dr. Morge? Oh, what's Subspecies? It's got vampires in it.
Yeah, well, that was the idea. You know, you had to pull them in. We didn't have the budget of, you know, Subspecies was when it came out, and Puppet Man, you know, they're right next to, you know, huge Hollywood movies, you know, oh, Terminator, Aliens, Subspecies, Puppet Master, you know, they're all on those same shelves depending on when they all came out.
Or hey, I like gaming, Dungeon Master.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So we were lucky that at that time, you know, those video store shelves were kind of like an equalizer. It's like, you know, we were up there with those other movies. Now, of course, there was never a price tag like Terminator, $92 million, Puppet Master, 600 grand. You know, there was no like, oh, wow. They had very little money compared to, you know, whatever it is, Aliens. But it doesn't matter. I mean, if you entertain people for 90 minutes and do a good job, I think that's kind of what it boils down to.
Definitely. Charles, where can people find you on social media if they want to send you praise about a film or
no, just go to, well, either go to fullmoonfeatures.com and you can communicate, or go to our store where they can buy all sorts of craziness, which is fullmoondirect.com. Between the two of them, they'll get to us, and we're always open to, you know, comments and advice and whatever it is. You know, we're very we're there.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. Like I said, been an absolutely big fan.
Cool. Well, thank you, and good luck with whatever you're doing, especially the way we opened and all the stuff you were in the middle of. That's very very ambitious.
Yeah, I have my own film sitting on not flash drives, on cards and a hard drive right now that I need to like patchwork piece together. Okay. That has been so delayed because of this Vlada thing. It was a graphic novel a few months ago, and now it's an audiobook on Kickstarter. So it's been a lot of work.
Good luck. All right.
Thank you, man. Thank you
so
much.
See you later. Bye-bye.